I'm gonna I'm gonna try to do this quick, okay? Which I know it's an impossibility, but there's so much information that needs to start getting out there. And I've because everything has been so uncertain, there hasn't been a lot to sit there and report. And there's been some drastic changes. So it's sort of in situations like that, my policy is to absolutely avoid falling into a trap of an emotional response. Now, am I perfect at that? No, I'm not perfect at that. But I do try to sit there and remind myself not to get involved in the mob mentality of what's going on. And guys, you can see the mob, and I don't care. And I would have to say that outside of a few rare examples, um, all of us have been pulled into a mob mentality because of this COVID situation, okay? And what it's done with regards to individual families, what it's done to the states, what it's done nationally, um, the inconsistency in and the lack of consensus with regards to the medical science, the recommendations, the governmental policy decisions that are being made off of imperfect information and imperfect and inconsistent medical data. Nobody knows what to do. I mean, everybody's just pulled one direction to the other direction. I mean, guys, the mob scared the hell out of the American Association of Pediatrics. The pediatricians came out and said that they recommended that kids return to school, and everybody went crazy over it, and so they ended up backpedaling because of the mob. Now, do I think that they were wrong? And no, I've seen the medical studies, or one particular, a very strong one out of Germany, where they reopened their school, one of their schools in one of the German um, states, down in I don't know where, but the they reopened in April and sent the kids back to school, and they've been tracking rates of infection, things of that nature, and it was a published scientific study about. And we also, during the height of COVID, guys, a few months ago, uh, we had to keep daycares open. So we have that information as well with regards to child transfer, to caregiver, all of those things. And so the pediatricians weren't wrong, but that's not what people want to hear right now. And I understand the response because we're dealing with our kids here. And I'm sorry, but I don't care what side of the your position is. These these are our kids. All right, and I appreciate teacher concern as well about returning to work. I get that, but I also, you understand that teachers returning to work, we've been going back, okay, as far as attorneys in my firm, because we have resumed in-person hearings, in-person mediations, in-person IEP meetings. So, you know, James Galini and his attorneys, merry band of attorneys, have all been going back to in-person meetings. Now, where we can, most of them are still being done via a virtual format, which is fine. But I'm just telling you that we've returned. We are returning. I'm planning to continue doing that. So I'm not being a hypocrite when I say, but I also understand the concerns. I do understand the concerns. Okay. It's just the unfortunate thing about what's going on right now is because of the inconsistency, the lack of consensus, um, with regards to governmental response. And please, and what sucks is that we have a national news media, but yet our country, with regards to our governmental structure, is 50 independent states. And when I say independent states, obviously we're united, and then we have a federal government. But guys, it's civics. It's civics. We have a national government, or we have a national media that's reporting what's going on everywhere. So if you're in Iowa, you're inundated with what's going on in California or Texas or New York. And it's very easy to sit there and say, oh, this is what the state of affairs is like in the United States. And it's not. But at the same time, we're incorrectly interpreting who's in charge. And because this is a virus situation, this is a state health issue. It's not a federal health issue. We live in a republic, guys. We live in a situation of separation of powers, and it's tiered, and it's intended to do that so that we remain free and we have our liberty. Okay, the federal government does not have police powers. It doesn't need police powers. I don't want it to have police powers. In fact, it has too much power as it is, and I could care less who president is. I could care less who the president is. I'll get into a debate with any one of you about any kind of substantial change that's occurred in the last, well, I mean, I'd have to say since my first election, and I voted for the first time when George Herbert Walker Bush, that's George W.'s dad, in '88, that was my first presidential election, guys. I can track it back to then, and you would be hard pressed to sit there and convince me that there's been any kind of dramatic change from president to president. And so that's when, as far as what's going on right now in this country and the virulence, I don't understand it. I don't, because I haven't been able to tell a damn bit of difference between one president and the next when it comes to policy decisions. The only difference is that each party loves their particular brand of oppression. And then when the other side gets in, then, oh my God, the sky is going to fall. And then you see gun sales go up. What gets me is that gun sales have gone up under Trump, but who's buying them? It's not it. But then under Obama, it was the same thing. Gun sales went up. For what reason? Who the hell knows? I don't know. But I'm just telling you that in what I do for a living, in dealing with government agencies, I don't see a difference. We still just prance around the world bombing the hell out of people. Doesn't matter who the president is. Doesn't matter. Doesn't matter, Democrat or Republican. We are bombing brown people. That I can promise you. Destabilizing entire regions. Balanced budgets. Who needs those, right? Really doesn't matter. So, you sit there, you can sit there and pretend. I mean, I guess if it makes you feel better, you can pretend that somehow, things change drastically depending on who's in the White House. It doesn't. It doesn't. So how does that impact here? Guys, this is a state issue. It's not a Trump issue. It's not a DeVos issue. It's a state issue. It's a state health issue because the state has police powers. So because the state has police powers, the state is the one that is in charge of shutting stuff down. The federal government can provide logistical supports, military hospital ships, which they've done, logistically help with ventilators, ordering those, acquiring those. But with regards to telling a state what it can or cannot do, can't do that. And I know that, people sit there and badmouth Trump, but quite frankly, I think that he's done, which was a concern, because he pops off way too much. But he hasn't gone in there to try to usurp state control over the issue, which he can't. It's the 10th Amendment, guys. And so it's a state issue. So New York handles the situation in New York, Texas in Texas. And then, you can sit there and pass judgment that, oh, these states reopened early. We don't know what any of this stuff means right now, guys. The data's premature. And a lot of the data's been wrong. There's no consensus in the data. That's what's causing all of this mayhem with regards to the schools reopening. Because nobody knows who to believe. Nobody knows what's right or wrong. So what has ended up happening is because there's been a lack of consensus and a lack of plan, and a lot of that is fueled by the media, unfortunately. And then also, a national CDC, but then when you go into pockets within these states, then you have people that are not affected by it, or they don't see all the danger that exists in other places. And so many of you on this page, I totally get it. Your experience in Illinois is not somebody's experience in rural Texas. It's just not. It is not the same. But yet we have a hard time stepping outside of ourselves and seeing that we have a very, very limited perspective. But yet what we see in the media, what we see scrolling across our Facebook feeds, it's so myopic and focused on one particular area, one particular prey, and it gives you this impression that it's some kind of uniform issue, and it's not. And then gives you the impression that there needs to be some kind of national plan, and it can't happen that way. We don't have that form of government. It's a state issue. And quite frankly, I think the states, when all the data, when all the dust settles, and we have a very, very good grasp of the data, because right now, guys, we're still in the midst of educated guesses, better guesses than we had 2 months ago. And I can tell you right now, our doctors and our nurses are doing a damn good job. Because now they've learned a lot in a very, very short amount of time. And we're saving more people. Because now we know that there's a high risk of people spinning into an immunal response known as a cytokine storm. So they can predict these kind of things. We're saving more people. Bravo to our medical system. So we're just getting to the forefront of these educated guesses and knowing what to do about it. And what's horrible are politicians, which I don't like anyway. Politicians. Let me say that again. Politicians. Do you really like them? Any of them? Have you liked them? I don't. But yet, these are the people making policy decisions over our lives based upon educated guesses, incomplete data, where there's lack of consensus. You know how many years some of this stuff takes to definitively, under a true scientific method, reach a point of consensus? And this has only been going on in the United States since mid-March. So you think about that. I know it seems like the longest year ever because of what's been going on, but in the sense of medical science, things have been occurring rapidly, and we're not giving and affording room for mistakes because humans make mistakes, and there's going to be bad data out there. But what's horrible and what's really going to be negatively impacting medical science is really how the media has portrayed it, and then how some have irresponsibly thrown it out there before having it reach that level of consensus with regards to publications. And even when something's published, guys, I mean, it's only good until that next question, that next theory in the scientific process occurs. I love the scientific method. I think it has set people free. I think that it has absolutely bolstered the enlightenment of human understanding and human progress. I do. So I am all about science. But But guys, at the same time, I understand what the scientific method is, and it is a series of educated guesses, confirmed when enough of the data is there and that we reach a point of consensus. And I think that this has been totally premature for us to sit there and rush out and be screaming on the internet about, definitives. I've tried to stay away from that. Now, have I been successful? Probably not. Probably not. I think I'm taking more of a position now that we don't know yet. I don't know what the increase in positive cases means. I'm not seeing a huge increase in corresponding deaths. So I don't know what an increase in positive cases are. What I'm also seeing is an increase in testing resulting in an increase in positive cases. But then I'm not seeing necessarily the corresponding jump in the number of people dying, which is a positive. I'm just wondering what's going to happen when the number of people being tested finally plateaus and starts going down. So if the number of people of being tested start going down, well, I'm assuming that the corresponding rates of positive tests will also go down with it. And if that happens fairly soon, then I think everybody's going to look at each other and go, well, we beat COVID. I don't know what's going to happen. Hell, I didn't expect this 3 weeks ago. So it's impacting our schools. It's impacting what it is that we can plan for. That's why, I was all about, let's plan on reopening, but that was 3 weeks ago. Things have changed. So my position is now that I wish that people would just wait until Labor Day. Let's wait. Let's chart there, and then make a decision 2 or 3 weeks out, and then set another goal. But outside of a state order shutting the schools, all the schools down, outside of a state health order, I don't believe that a local school board, I do not believe that it's wise for them to apply a uniform standard for all students or teachers of a shutdown. It might not be discriminatory because they're negatively impacting all students, but at the same time, outside of a health order shutting all schools down, FAPE guys, a local school board, even under a state shutdown, are required to provide our kids a free and appropriate public education. And a lot of our kids are not distant learners. And so therefore, if there's no state health order shutting you down and you've made a local decision to shut down, but yet you could provide services inside your school. Now, is it discriminatory to provide services to special education kids? No, it's not. And then tell the other ones that, no, it's not. Somebody could make that argument, but then the school would come back and say, look, we have a legal duty to these students that cannot learn through distant learning. And they have a legal duty where the parents are afforded a right to legally challenge that. For general ed students, a parent can sit there, they could sue over anything. So a parent could sit there and say, well, damn it, my kid, if they're letting special ed kids go to school and receive services, then my kid, Sally needs to go and sit in her AP classes. Well, thing is, Sally doesn't have a recognized, and depending on the state you live in, guys, I hate to break it to you, but Alabama, you don't have a right to an education. They took that out of the state constitution back in 1950. Oh, it was after the Plessy versus Ferguson, or maybe it was Brown versus Board of Education. They took it out right after that because it used to be a child had a right to an education, but then they took that out as a way to try to sidestep integration. So didn't work, thank God. But I'm just saying that, you know, with regards to some kind of state right to an education, you got to check your state constitution, your state laws on that. You know, and there is a difference between how a special education student can learn as opposed to a general education student. And because the child does have a statutory right to a free and appropriate public education, where a parent is given a right to legally challenge that, if there's no state health order shutting the school down, then that school still has a responsibility to provide a FAPE. And if they try to do it through a distant learning plan only or through virtual learning, then the only recommendation that I have for parents is that you file a due process complaint. You slap that district, because they can serve your child. It's just that they're making a board decision to not do that. Not saying it's discriminatory, because all students are distant learners, but your child who cannot learn in that mode requires an alternative approach. And that's called an individualized education program, okay? Not a DLP. But I'm going to get into that on my next video. I wanted to do this as an intro, and then I'm going to get into the nitty-gritty and provide an example of what I believe, and I believe that I'm correct in this recommendation. Okay, there's no rule out there, so all we can do is pull from our existing case law and what already exists in a law that's fairly similar to this. And so I've come to that, what I believe that is. And so I'm going to have a redacted IEP I'm going to show you. I'm going to have a prior written notice that I created, and then I'm also going to have an example of a distant learning plan. That's going to be in my next video. Okay?